Hello, hello, everybody. Welcome to the Joanna Dinsdale Show. Woo! We're going to be talking people pleasing today. I'm super excited to talk about this. The people have spoken. You guys voted on this topic, and thus we shall talk about it. Firstly, I want to start off right. I want to thank my subscribers, the members here as well. You know, Mark Cassier, Alex, IX, Anvil, Jared, Jeff, Nasposer. Who else do we got? We got Ruth, Brad, Joel. The people just keep joining, and I love it, guys. I really appreciate the support. We have a lot of fun on this channel, and I think this is a great topic to cover because sometimes I get in my head, right, about what you guys want, and I almost overthink it, right? I'm like constantly adjusting. Hey, Joe, how's it going? How are you doing? We're talking people pleasing today. So glad to see you on here. I started a little bit early because sometimes I think it takes a bit of time for people to hop in. So yeah, people pleasing. What is it? We're going to cover what is it, how to identify it in yourself and other people. We're going to talk codependency. We often hear this in TV shows, but what does it actually mean? That's always fun to cover. What else? We're going to talk, specific techniques that you can use to stop the people pleasing. Yes. So let's just give an example, as I love to do. You are a person who has a sudden intense pressure to say yes to everyone. No matter what task it might be, your initial reaction is yes, off the bat. Doesn't matter what's going on for you, doesn't matter who it's from, you always end up overcommitted, exhausted, and sometimes silently resentful for taking all of this on. You kind of wish that people could guess, okay, I have enough here, but you're just unable to set those boundaries. All little tiny flags that there might be some people pleasing going on. Oh, we got somebody else here. Nicholas, how are you doing? Welcome. I'm a therapist from Toronto, Canada, multi-therapy. Tell me, where are you from? I love to hear where people are from. I just think it's so interesting how we have such a global community here at multi-therapy. Joe, that's okay that you haven't been able to come by in a while. Life happens, of course, Everybody can stop by when they're able to, and I appreciate you even just stopping by today. It's wonderful to have you here. Catch me up. What's been new? Does this topic resonate with you? Are you one of the ones who voted for this? I'd love to hear it. Joe, yeah, I think you mentioned you're from the UK. That's great. Yeah, I am also a British. I used to live there for a little period of time and it was wonderful. But Canada is truly my home. We love it here. We got the maple syrup. I always have my maple syrup coffee in the morning. It wouldn't be right to not have that. So it's very accessible here, fortunately. Yeah, so the truth is, though, guys, the nice person syndrome is not always a good thing, right? Because it leads to burnout. And truly, what lies underneath it is a fear of rejection that's disguised as kindness. Does that make sense? You say yes to everything because you have all of your value as a person tied into what other people need from you. And I'm going to give you more examples. Stay tuned. I'm going to tell you exactly how that works, how you can identify it. Ooh. My camera loves to zoom into my face. I'm not sure why. I guess it thinks I'm cute, maybe. Well, you voted for the topic because this topic will help you out a lot. Okay, perfect. I'm really glad that this is the one you chose. It was a tie for a while, but I guess... yeah, people landed on this one. I think it was like 50, 25, 25 for the other ones. All right, Dustin, can you give your honest opinion? Sure. You're having problems with some of your family members and they're forcing you into the Catholic religion. Okay, but you're not active in the religion. You dislike the forcing part. Wow, Dustin, thank you for sharing that. That's a tricky one. Absolutely, I can understand your frustration and feeling forced into a religion. And again, there's only so much I can do on these talks, like virtually here, but you're absolutely valid to feel that way. And I would explore what the difference is between your beliefs and the Catholic belief. Like, is there any difference there? Or is it the fact that you're getting forced into it that you don't like? And that's kind of a boundary of crossing, right? Where it's like, I'm forced to do something that I don't want to do and I don't like that. Yeah, it sounds like there's a bit of exploration there towards spirituality and also setting some boundaries with your parents. I know parents can be the hardest ones, especially if you live with them. That often is difficult to set those boundaries. But I hope that was helpful. And thank you again for sharing. I know sometimes it's hard to be open and honest. All right, GD mining, I think that's what it says. Sorry, the text is very small. What's all the framed papers in the background? Oh, those are all my degrees and certifications and stuff. I went to the University of Guelph for applied sciences, my master at Yorkville University for counseling psychology, and then the rest are just kind of random certifications that I got to do with psychotherapy. Oh, thanks, Joe. I appreciate that. Oh, GDM mining. I'm sorry. There's a bit of a delay here, guys. There's about, I think, a 40-second delay when it comes to messages. I'm not sure if I can change that or not, but I guess that would be something to look into. I think it helps to just like filter out certain messages. Oh boy. All right. So let's talk a little bit more about the nice trap, the nice guy trap. You always hear, I'm a nice guy, or I'm a really nice person. But what is it? How can we differentiate where it's truly you just being a really nice person versus excessive compliance? You're just doing it to avoid saying no, right? It's almost a feeling. And I feel like if you guys showed up to this because you picked this topic, it might be a sign that there's something to dive deeper here with you, right? It's an external need for approval. And I hate to be the, what do you call it, the typical therapist, but often it does start in childhood where we have this, we're sort of taught that performance equals love, especially when it comes to school grades and everything. If we don't do bad, we're praised, right? We get often a lot of love, but then if we fail, sometimes it feels like that love is taken away. So we develop this kind of belief system that if we're not performing, then we don't deserve love, right? And some people really take this to heart and make it like it comes into a fear, basically. It turns into a fear. Let's see. How do you tell your mom you're a lesbian? Oh, that's a difficult one. Yeah. Well, it depends, I guess, on your mom, but congratulations for deciding whether or not you want to step out of the closet there. I think there's a lot of great free resources too on how to build up kind of like a plan for yourself. If you really want to share this news with your parents, make sure that you have a safety plan if you're worried about your safety. Yeah, there's no right or wrong way. And again, like there's only so much I can do on these live chats, but you know, if this is important to you that you want to share this with your mom and kind of write it down, journal it out, kind of make an action plan on if she does this, then what am I going to do, right? If you have a nice plan, it's going to make it feel a lot more manageable to take that step when you're ready. Of course, keeping that journal very safe too. Okay, let's see here. Hold on, guys. Okay. Let's see. Just catching up with the chat. Every time you talk about not being active into religion, you get scolded about not having Holy Spirit and just sometimes called out as, okay, yeah, in some heated argument, they feel impossible to talk with. That's really hard when it feels like, your parents don't understand you at all, right? And I wonder from their perspective why they're doing it that way, whether they're fearful of, I guess, what happens if you're not very active in the religion, right? But that's no excuse on how it makes you feel, right? That's not a great feeling that, your parents don't understand you. And I wonder, is that something you want? You want them to understand you a bit better, and you want to have that conversation with them this is why I'm doing it, right? And I hear you. Sometimes parents don't want to hear that, right? They don't want to process that. But that's the thing when it comes to these healthy boundaries. It's about assertive communication styles, putting out what your needs are. They might not be receptive, but at least you tried, and they're aware that this is something that's important to you. If they decide not to honor that, that's on them. And then that's when you take the next steps of the boundaries that you're going to set up to protect yourself, right? Because if this is hurting you over and over and over again, you begin to expect that kind of behavior. And once you have that kind of bar lowered down, right? Disappointment is caused from expectations of people. And once you lower that expectation down, you can start to accept the people for who they are, see them clearly, and decide whether or not you want to accept that, basically, right? Okay, thank you, Superman, for the thumbs up. I appreciate that. All right, Valerie Bro. How to deal with narcissistic family members at Christmas? Oh my gosh, that is a very topical one. That's a great question. I was just doing some research into narcissism and everything, and that's a tricky one, right? Because, let's be, the honest thing is that narcissism is really hard for them to change their ways, right? So this is what you're going to do. You're going to expect this person to have narcissistic behaviors, right? Figure out which ones to expect, right? Are they going to start picking at, the way you look? Are they going to start bragging about something? Come up with their patterns, right? If you understand their patterns, that can be really helpful, because then you can come up with a way to find peace, right? If your goal is to be very peaceful at Christmas and feel nice and relaxed and at ease with them, then, that might be something along the lines of, this narcissistic person is starting to talk about my appearance again, right? Look at things that have worked in the past too. Like, what made them stop in the past? Sometimes it's good if you've lived with this person for a really long time. You have a lot of data there, basically. What worked in the past where you're able to shut them down and implement it here. Everybody's different. That's why I kind of keep these tips and tricks a little bit more broader on here. Broader. All right. You are a straight male and a chatterbox. Every chance I get, ha-cha-cha. I like that. Sausage. You feel lost. You're 28 and you work at a pizza shop and you also have an addiction. Oh, I'm really sorry to hear that, Sausage. First of all, if that's something that you really want to change, there's some great free resources, like AA, NA meetings. You can do them virtually. You can go to them in person. But those are really great supports for somebody who wants change and community too, like a whole group of people who understand. But again, I get it if you're not ready for that. There's so many different options for support out there, when it comes to rehab, when it comes to, just therapy, right? So I encourage you to find the support you need if that's something that you're really struggling with, because the more support, the better when it comes to making that change. Joe. Joe's given some nice advice. Yeah, thanks, Joe, for letting people know. I know there's a bit of a delay in the chat, so I'll get to you guys. Hold on. Okay, there we go. Das, it's mainly your grandmother. My parents are separated. Your mom works in a different country. Your dad is in a different city. No any relationship right now. Granny was a bit old-fashioned. Wow. Okay, a bit old-fashioned. Yep. I've been there too, right? It's difficult when it comes to older people too, because you find that they don't change a lot once they're older, or at least from my experience, that seems to be the case, right? So that's where it comes to the balance of, am I going to confront this person and try to change their ways, or am I going to accept them for who they are, right? And there's like there's like different things you could do, right? Like on the extreme end of things, you could cut off that family member, right? I don't know if you're at that stage, but that is an option. It's always an option. Then on the other hand, it's, telling them how you feel, trying to get them to change. How often does that work? It's hard to say, right? And then in the middle, it's like accepting that person for who they are and deciding from there. It's setting those boundaries of, I'm not going to talk about this with you if that's something you want to do. Again, it's hard to say when I don't have the full story, but often it comes to breaking down your needs and how to get them met. Okay. All right. You always find excuses and arguments that sound nonsense. Always tries to apply to old stuff to new stuff. Yeah, I get that. Having the family members or people that you know who are very old school and different opinions, right? And it's not necessarily wrong for them to have different opinions. It's wrong for them to try to force that opinion on you. And I hear that must have been very frustrating. Okay. Greetings from Ireland. Welcome, Brendan. Wow, it must be pretty late there, isn't it? Like 4 a.m.-ish? 2 a.m.? What time is it, Brendan? Please tell me. All right, guys, we're going to switch back to the nice trap, okay? We're talking the nice person syndrome. And we talked about how it sometimes can be excessive compliance, right? Because we want this approval from people outside of us. We're afraid of conflict and we're afraid of abandonment. So what are we going to do? Say yes all the time. So this is a form of people pleasing, okay? And you kind of present yourself in a way that you think others want. So you're not really being your authentic self in the end. You might be a nice person, but you're taking it a step further, right? You're endlessly helpful, available, agreeable, while burying your true feelings and needs. And of course, in our society, sometimes you have to do that. But again, it's like taking it a step further where you really don't feel like you're being yourself at all. You're just constantly putting on this facade of being a super kind, agreeable person, right? And here's where it's, oh, Brendan, you said it's 1:18 a.m. Okay, so it's not as bad as I thought it was. That's good. Yeah, I was trying to figure out, we have subscribers from around the world. I do feel bad for the people who are like in India and stuff, because I know it's super late there. So I'm trying to figure out a schedule where everybody's happy. Everybody gets to have a little chat if they'd like throughout the week. Yeah, so I love to do examples of specific people who have the people pleasing, and I like to use famous characters in order to, I don't know, just have fun and make it more understandable, right? So, number one, I like to use Ned Flanders as an example from The Simpsons. He is absolutely a perpetual people pleaser. Like he never says no to to the Homer's toxic behavior, and he's very overly compliant, right? He often gets wound up in all these crazy adventures, even though he doesn't really want to. Great example. Also, he's a good example of toxic positivity, where he's trying to be really positive in like the worst situations. Who's another one? Let me think. There is, oh, Alfred from Batman came up, which I think is like a good example because his whole life has to do with Bruce Wayne. Like he doesn't really have an outside life anymore. He's completely codependent. He would be a good example of codependency, where your life is very, very much entangled with the other person, where it's almost like you're thinking more about them than you are of yourself. That's it. Oh, just getting another message here. Thanks for the answers, but right now you don't want to talk about that to Granny. Finding arguments right now is a bit troublesome, but loved interacting with a therapist in YouTube. Yeah, of course. I'm really glad that we're able to touch base. I do wish you all the best. That doesn't sound like an easy thing, but it sounds like you're looking for change. So I hope that it was helpful. And yeah, if you need somebody to talk to, please book with a professional. There's some really good, you can find free ones or affordable ones. There's so many options out there for you. All right, who else? We talked about Alfred and Ned Flanders as examples for people pleasing. Hodor, I was like, this kind of works because his whole life is just kind of moving Bran around, but I guess that's kind of his job too. But he doesn't have an outside life, so that's why I said maybe this would be considered codependent, where he's like, his whole external value is based on doing this thing. He doesn't have anything else going on, which, yeah. And this is up for discussion. I also said 11 from Stranger Things might be, because at the very beginning when she got her friends, I feel like she was a bit of a people pleaser, okay? Like she had never had a friend before. She wanted to be liked. So she has like a lot of compliance for what the crew wants to do, and uses her power sometimes to prove her value. I thought this was very topical because of the new season that came out. What do you guys think? Is 11 from Stranger Things a people pleaser? Let me know. Yeah. Do you think I'd look good with a shaved head like 11? That would be interesting. Exactly. Yeah, she really did just kind of go with whatever they were saying, but again, she didn't really have too much options either. It was either do that or kind of leave and be stuck on her own. So this was a bit of a survival situation too, I would say. Yeah, so we talked about like the root cause of these things, right? The intense pain of saying no is often rooted in childhood, where direct conflict led to punishment, withdrawal, or emotional abandonment, right? So your subconscious is telling you to be safe, you have to be agreeable, right? And this is where we can start to heal. Once you know that this is the situation, then we can start to take the steps forward. And if you think that your needs don't matter as much as somebody else's, that's another sign. Okay? And let's give an example here. So say somebody asks you, I don't know, say you just got a new bike and somebody comes along and says, hey, that's a great bike, let me try it, right? That request comes in. The inner child or that piece of you starts to panic about fear of rejection or abandonment. So you just say, sure. Even though you know this person has never ridden a bike in their life, you're worried that they're going to scrape the paint off of it, but you say yes, right? To make that uncomfortable feeling, to avoid that conflict of saying no. In the aftermath, you might feel tired, resentful, and the cycle starts again. Do I snore? Sometimes. Okay, sorry, I'm caught up on the chats, just making sure. Yeah, so what to do, guys? What to do about all this? How do we fix it? Well, let me tell you. I do have some strategies in mind. Firstly, you can always use, this is just like a quick trick that you can put in your pocket, put in that mental health toolbox. You don't have to give an immediate answer to somebody. Sometimes you can just create a little bit of cognitive space by saying, say you're at work, somebody asks you to do a project that has nothing to do with you, it's their project, and they say, hey, do this project for me. You can create that space by saying, that sounds really interesting, let me check my schedule, and I'll get back to you really quick. That way you're creating that space to really think it out. You aren't like panic agreeing, and that can work really, really well if you're somebody who just like automatically says something. If you recognize something as a request, just give yourself a little bit of space, or even just saying, like making up a little excuse just to get away for a minute so you can process that and really decide if you want to do that thing, because you do have autonomy in your life. That's a funny comment there. Okay, so another one you can try is practicing saying no, right? But this is like slowly starting to build up that comfortability. Instead of saying no fully out, you can say no, but I can do this, right? So I can't do that big project, but I will look it over for you at the end. How does that sound? Right? Something along those lines where you're trying to contribute just a little bit. That way it softens the blow of the no. It's a good practice, working your way up to just saying that no straight up. Another one, again, using I statements is something that I probably tell most all of my clients in therapy. I would say like 90% of them. And it's about this I feel statement, or it's a way of communication called assertiveness. Rather than being passive and letting people control the conversation, being assertive is saying, I feel this way. I'm telling you so we can work together in order to come to a conclusion, right? So, for example, you're kind of overanalyzing something, and it's just like, I feel really overwhelmed with work right now. People can't argue with that, right? It's a fact, it's your own experience. Oftentimes when we get stuck in these like harder conversations where people are trying to flip-flop and tell you, oh, like, but what about this? You need to do this, right? That kind of shuts down the flip-floppiness from the other person. You're just saying, I feel this way, so I'm not able to do that, right? For example, I'm feeling really protective over my bike right now. It's brand new, so maybe next time, right? Again, like that person might feel disappointed. They might try to pester you about using your bike, but that's where you can say, listen, I've explained, I feel this way, so I'm just gonna honor that, right? Very therapeutic sounding, right? You can make it your own, customize it to match your personality. Some people soften it with humor, right? It's like, you're gonna crash the thing. Like, I don't know. People come up with their own strategies, but just know that you have every right to say no to people. obviously like at work, don't get fired. But yeah, if it's these little things where it comes to people maybe taking advantage of you, just start to practice setting up those safe, small boundaries towards it. And yeah, inner child reassurance can be a really powerful one too. If you really resonated with what I was talking about beforehand, where the inner child was feeling frustrated, feeling scared, worried about rejection. Inner child work is about understanding who you were as a kid and what you've carried into adulthood. So, for example, if you were maybe neglected as a kid and now you're really over the top trying to get people's reassurance, like you live for that, you live for people to give you attention, right? It's comforting that small part of you that is lashing out, that inner child is feeling uncomfortable, is feeling worried, right? You can even visualize it, this little tiny version of yourself, this child version, and just comforting them, right? It's like this really nice, gentle way of interacting with yourself, with comforting yourself, and saying that you are safe, you will protect them. If they get angry, it is their feeling. It's not a reflection of your worth. And that's a big one, right? No matter how they react, that doesn't make you any less valuable as a person. It doesn't affect your worthiness. You are just looking out for your needs and wants. You know, of course, compromise can happen if it needs to happen, but your needs and your wants are just as important, okay? Remember that. All right. And sometimes just a way to check in with yourself, whether you are able to do this, you can do like a little energy check, right? Say, if I say yes, will this leave me feeling energized, neutral, or drained? And that way you can check in if this is a yes situation or a no, right? Because sometimes it takes practice. We don't trust ourselves. Like, are we just saying no to everybody because this is what we're trying to practice? Or is this an actual situation that I don't want to do? I hope you guys found that helpful. You know, the goal is not to be mean again. It's about being authentic. The kind of thing that you can do for a relationship is being true, your whole self, right? Being your authentic self, living up to your fullest potential is often the main goal of therapy, right? People want to live their best lives, whatever that looks like. Some people want it to be a happy life. Some people want it to be a productive life, whatever that looks like for you. There's no one path when it comes to that. So yeah, just something to reflect on, guys. Specifically, if you are a people pleaser, you can use some of those tips and tricks to see if this works for you. And if not, let me know in the comments down below, or if they do, that would be even better. Yay, I'll cheer you on either way for trying something new. Yeah, but before we go, I want to talk a little bit about codependency. We talked a little bit about how codependency often ties in with people pleasing, right? So what we can do there is look at codependency like a pattern of behavior where one person sacrifices their own needs, identity, and well-being to meet the other needs of a person. I bet you're thinking, okay, I can see why this ties in, right? It's often described as like a relationship addiction because the codependent person gets their sense of worth and security only from being needed, useful, or essential to that other person. And that's where it gets unhealthy, right? Like the two lives are becoming too intertwined. And yeah, the core issue of this is the blending of the boundaries, right? Sometimes that codependent person spends all of their energy on fixing or controlling or helping the other person, which uses this like external force to avoid looking at their own internal pain and needs, right? So again, like maybe Hodor, Alfred for sure. Let me think of anybody else. Is there anybody else I want to talk to? I can't think of anybody else. How about you guys? Can you think of any other codependent relationships? I'm sure there's a ton out there. I mean, Bella from Twilight, she makes her whole identity around what's his face, Edward. Like, she doesn't really have anything else going on for her except that relationship. So that was a little bit of a red flag for me when I watched it. I've been getting a lot of Twilight ads for some reason, a lot of like Twilight reels. I'm not sure why, but I guess it's a fun blast to the past. So yeah, if you find that your worth is very external, tied to other people, if you kind of fear independence completely, sometimes you find this with people in the military. They find it really hard when they're not serving other people. It makes them feel like they're unnecessary and worthless, right? Which is simply not true. So yeah, now that we have kind of covered that, a little bit of everything, nice person syndrome, and also codependency, and some examples. I hope you guys had a lot of fun watching this. It was a lot of fun going live today. I appreciate everyone who joined in and contributed to the chat. Again, my name is Johanna Dinsdale from Multi-Therapy. If you enjoyed this, feel free to subscribe or join the membership. I've been playing around with the schedule, so please stay tuned and check in with my community post to see what's happening. All right, guys, well, take care, and I'll see you